Hi everyone, this is Ian Henson. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are glad that you are here. This is our podcast to understand Unravelling the Mysteries of the Heart, William Harvey and the Discovery of the Circulatory System. Now, let's begin. Hi, I am Ian Julie Henson.
Mabuhay! I am Arjunet Salas Eusebio.
Mabuhay! I am Jennifer Gonzalez.
Mabuhay! I am Marian Lorraine Pinca.
Hello everyone, and I am Kimari Reyes. So, for our first trivia, did you know that the account of Leonid Rogozov, the Russian doctor who performed surgery on himself to save his own life, is one of the most astounding genuine survival stories in history?
William Harvey is an English physician who was the first to recognize the full circulation of the blood in the human body.
The third trivia is 20 years is the amount of the time it took for Harvey's work to be accepted by medicine.
Before Dr. Harvey looked inside a cadaver, the animal he studied was frog.
William Harvey proved Galen wrong that the liver didn't create blood. It is outstanding that the heart, circulatory system, and other bodily organs' essential functions have not changed. For so long, they have been a mystery to humans, even though they are so close to us and necessary to our survival. Early on, though, doctors had a grim time determining those functions. Religious taboos severely restricted the quantity of information that could be shared. These sections of humans are happening. The fact that barbers will do surgery demonstrates surgery's low rank and primitive state. Because they had the proper cutting equipment, they often doubled as surgeons. Another significant constraint was the absence of anesthetics used to alleviate pain. The closest thing to painkillers was a heavy close of whiskey or a knock on the head. Before the 1800s, doctors did, so it turns out people rarely undergo surgery.
Maybe because that operation before was too painful to take. Imagine that they will do a surgery procedure without any painkillers to take or inject to your body and just give you a heavy dose whiskey without any assurance that is enough not to feel the pain on the entire duration of your procedure. Harvey studied how to find out how blood flows in our body. Lung is one of the parts of the body that is related to the flow of blood in our body. Harvey believes that the heart of animal and human makes a contribution to the movement of an animal and human body. Because of the valve of the vein in the heart, it circulates blood to go to the tissues of our body. He finds out of the valve of the veins, the blood vessels, to circulate it in our body to our heart.
However, while Galen dispelled the myth that the arteries simply carried air, he also dispelled several other myths about the flow of blood. He stated that, for one thing, air travels directly from your lungs to your heart, which is where your soul lives, a furnace that heats up your body and where your blood flows through your veins. The blood then travels out to the body, where it is absorbed and not recirculated, according to his second argument. Pneuma is a spirituous material that forms when air and blood mingle together. Firstly, which affects the liver, heart, and mind, and is responsible for things like passions, perceptions, and consciousness, can be divided into three types of pneuma. As far as life and consciousness is an organism are concerned, according to Galen, pneuma is the most important source of life. Finally, the theory of four humors, blood, bile, black bile, and phlegm, was developed based on Aristotle's theory of the four terrestrial elements, which must be balanced in order to be healthy. As a result of these erroneous conclusions about human biology, there are two primary fallacies regarding disease. The first thing they saw is a sign of imbalance of the four humors, and the only way to treat that sickness and bring back the balance is to perform bloodletting or purging on the body. And the second one that also binds on the first misconception is that disease occurs due to internal balance and purely because of that, and not external factors. Consequently, regardless of how similar the symptoms may be, each person's sickness was treated as an individual matter with no resemblance to any other people.
Despite the church begging for Galen and his anti-dissection sentiments, issues began to surface with Galen's work. Observations alone can lead to hypotheses over time. This as well as two other aspects, both of which are related to Renaissance-fronted new studies into the nature of the heart. For starters, there's the Renaissance. The importance of precise representation of nature and human anatomy has increased in the art of world. Da Vinci's masterpiece, the most well-known instances of this emphasis on realism are notebooks. It also aided in the dissemination of information to make these ideas more widely known in the medical community. Second, the Renaissance was not always so significant for breeding in biology as it was in physics and astronomy. Discovery of more excellent author who defied the recognized authority, putting historians under a lot of pressure, must go out and find the truth for themselves. Aristotle, who disagreed with him, was the opposing authority. On several occasions, Galen claimed that the life of process was the result of all organs in the body, not just once. Numa, this helped to bring up a discussion on the nature of disease and the process of life.
The combination of these circumstances, as with Aristotle, created a cycle that both discredited Galen's and hindered the development of new theories. New observation would be made that appeared to be in direct opposition to his views. This would lead to new explanation, which would be framed in the framework of existing beliefs. And so the system would be patched up. Additional observations, on the other hand, would result in more patching of the previous system, and so on. The system would eventually become riddled with flaws that someone would take the new information and synthesize it into a new set of hypotheses that better describe the cosmos. Much of this research took place at University of Padua, which was a major center for research and innovative theories in the 50s and 60s, because it was governed by Venice, which had an anti-clerical heritage. The University of Padua was able to foster more intellectual freedom, which was necessary for developing new ideas that better describe nature. Most of the individuals who disapproved Galen's hypothesis and created the current idea of circulation worked there, including Copernicus and Galileo. Vesalius and Paracelsus in the particular paved the paths of new hypotheses to be challenged.
Paracelsus in 1493-1541 was a physician who studied under the ancient Greek philosopher Galen, but never got a medical degree. He taught instead from his own experiences rather than Galen's text, and he did so in vernacular rather than Latin. The medical establishment of his day despised him, but he became something of a folk hero to following generations. One of his claims was that sickness was caused by outside factors acting on the body rather than an internal imbalance. Vesalius in 1514-64 also took measures to dispose Galen and paved the way for a new theory of the heart and circulatory system. Vesalius performed his own dissections and saw things for himself, even observed stuff he wasn't looking for, which contradicted to Galen. Nonetheless, Vesalius of Padua was one of the most influential medical books of its time, producing anatomical illustrations for medical manuals of exceptional precision and demonstrating that Galen's description of the human body was incorrect. It was published in the same year as Copernicus' publication advocating a heliocentric world.
More evidence was accumulating to cast doubt on Galen. In 1559, one of Basilius' students, Colombo, published a description of how blood traveled from the right side of the heart to the lungs and then to the left ventricle. He did, however, maintain the traditional view that blood flowed out of the heart via both arteries and veins. Fabricius published a work in 1574 describing valves in veins that prevent the outward flow of blood from the heart. Even so, he refused to recognize that this meant blood flowed from the veins to the heart. Cisalpino observed blood flowing from the arteries to the veins and then to the heart in 1606. Harvey developed very modern methods of observation and experimentation after being influenced by Fabricius' work on vein valves.
We hope you learned from our discussion. Thank you so much for listening.